Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 45 of Syncing with ServiceNow. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I've got a good panelist guest here. I've got Mike Sabia, who's always with us. Mike, how's it going?
Doing well. Thanks, Andy.
Mike, I think I ask you every time, but I'm gonna do it this time. What's the most interesting customer conversation you've had in the last 2 weeks?
A lot of them is, like in this case, we have a customer who is moving from another managed service provider, and they have questions about how we can best help them because they were not satisfied with their old partner. I'd say that's the most intriguing discussions I had.
And that's the conversation I have all the time, like all the time, whether it's a managed service provider or whether it's a consulting firm they're working with. I made a comment to somebody at the HIMSS conference last week that 9 out of 10 ServiceNow customers aren't really happy with their current scenario. It's not like they got the bad code. The code's great. It's just the implementation or the support of it's not good. Maybe they didn't implement it the way they thought they would, or maybe they haven't, achieved the goals they set out to achieve. Very, very, very common. And it's sad. It's sad that your answer is what it is because we want it to be something fun, exciting. We want it to be AI, how they're using AI to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
You're just talking about unhappy customers. That's just reality.
And today we're going to be talking about AI, which is, hey, where can we grow? But yeah, a lot of times it's a fundamental, hey, are we doing it right? Are we being responsive, which their partner was not?
Yeah. So Mike Sabia is our solutions architect here at XenTegra. John Dahl is with us, replacing Fred, who's off gallivanting somewhere around the world, doing something fun, I hope. John, how's it going?
It's going very well. Thanks. It's good to be back. I was on a couple of these year or so ago, and so it's good to be back.
So John, you don't have the best audio quality, maybe some background noise and stuff that kind of picks up. So just try to avoid any like extra noises. John, same question to you. What's the most interesting thing you've talked to a customer about in the last week or two?
Well, right now there's a lot of talk about knowledge coming up in a couple of months. So trying to figure out what kind of conversations they should be ready to have, what expectations they should have as they go into an opportunity to see a bunch of different technologies. And they know that it's AI focused. ServiceNow has been talking about AI for the last couple of years, almost constantly. So
yeah. Come to knowledge, prepared to talk about any and everything, including how unhappy you are with the current implementation, or how you can't understand or don't know what to do with AI, or something somewhere in the middle of all that, or I don't know, something along the. Come prepared to engage is what I would say. So guys, you brought forward a blog this week called "Achieve Exponential Outcomes with 3 Vital Levels of AI." First question to you guys: is it A, capital I, or is it capital A, lowercase I?
Capital, in my opinion.
Both
both capital. Yes.
Okay, so when I see it uppercase A, lowercase I, why do I feel like an idiot? Because like, is it this way or is it that way? Which one is it?
I don't normally experience that, so I'm surprised that you have.
It's just kids.
Yeah, I think when you see that, somebody blindly accepted whatever autocorrect told them it should be.
Okay, maybe so. I think maybe the cool kids like little K, little I. We'll see what wins out. This article is from January 23rd of this year, by Chris Beatty. Is Beatty the way you say that? Bedi? Beatty?
I would think so.
Okay, awesome.
Or Betty.
Betty, yeah, maybe Betty. Well, whatever it is, Chris, thanks for writing it. We're going to talk through it now. I'll read the first sentence here because I think it's kind of enlightening to what we're going to talk about. AI. Oh, wait a minute. Mike, when you jumped on, you made some reference to John not being the biggest fan of AI, while maybe you are a huge believer in it. Did I get that?
I would say that, and John would probably agree with me, that AI is something you need to be considerate about. What are you trying to accomplish? You can't just put AI, or too many people do say, hey, we're doing AI this, we're doing AI that. And there are different types of AI, which we'll talk about today, such as, traditional AI to do ticket routing. Then there's generative AI, where we're trying to like ask questions and then have that response generated. And then there's some of that agentic stuff which results from it. The first one, the predictive intelligence, the routing, that's pretty clear cut and dry. It's going to be very useful. But for the generative AI, there are cost implications. There are actions that even ServiceNow charges you for. They give you a whole bunch of them, but each query or act of that against ServiceNow is an action, and those could add up, rather than simply spending a bunch of money, you want to make sure that what you're doing is useful. And some of the stuff is really cool. The question is it worth the investment?
So, John, did Mike understate or overstate your thoughts?
Well, I tend to be cautious about it. So AI has been a buzzword for a couple of years. And, going into this, I took the position that everybody's going to try to use it everywhere. And it's going to explode into every possible use case. And then over time, organizations are going to start to figure out where it really truly adds value and where it's just fluff. And I think we're starting to get into an area where companies are seeing where it's adding value and where it's just extra cost. But as we continue to push for more and more advanced capabilities, there still needs to be a good amount of oversight. And this article actually highlights that, or it at least mentions it. There has to be oversight. You have to be able to recognize when AI is wrong. And there are times where AI is wrong and it has cost companies lots of money.
Yeah. Sometimes I like to think of it this way. It's going to be wrong most of the time, but right enough to add value. Like, no, I say that at the same time. The other day, my wife wanted to look at a house, and we're trying to find who the listing agent is. She would look for a day. Like, she took all day trying to find it. It took me 30 seconds with AI, and not only did I find a listing agent, it told me that it was the listing agent's house that she was trying to sell. Unbelievably spot on and powerful.
Yes, and I think that probably tends to be more of that predictive intelligence that we already have in place, right? It definitely has value, right? I would never say that there's no value involved with it. I just am cautious about putting it in areas of sensitivity and making too many business decisions without validating, because it's learning off of our own old mistakes, right? So it's not like it has true intelligence to make wise decisions out of the ether. It's looking at what mistakes we've already made, and it's learning from that, and in some cases repeating it.
Yeah.
Right. And a good example of some of the mistakes that can happen is putting it directly in front of customers. There's, a case in the news where somebody was making a air flight reservation and they acted, made certain decisions, and it turned out that wasn't company policy, and there was a big hoopla whether the airline was going to honor that statement by AI. But if you are utilizing it for yourself and then you review it, such as you with your real estate thing, you got the answer, then you're saying, hey, does this make sense? That's a great use case.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. In that case, I told my wife, call this person and find out that's true. And it was 100% true, which was awesome. All right. The article starts off, I'm reading the first line. It says, AI is not a strategy. It's not a new channel, product, or goal. It's certainly not better chatbots, meeting summaries, or email draft creations. AI is
that too, but yes.
AI is the most powerful enabling technology to emerge in the past century, and then we'll go on to talk about it. But it's something we can't ignore. We have to realize it's real. It is very, 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 very real. But the challenge is what to do with it, what to expect out of it, and we're going to break that down here with these three levels. There's a graph here. It goes from left to right and goes up. It goes higher as it goes from left to right. Analytical AI, which we'll talk about. Generative AI, which I've been talking about a lot, but I can't wait to hear what you guys say about it. And then Agentic AI, which I've heard those words. I've heard that word and the acronym together, but I really don't know what it is. So I'm excited to hear what you guys are going to say. So the real first of the third that we're going to talk through here, or the first section, talks about unleashing the power of AI. Mike, kind of help us lead into this, and then help between you and John break down the three that are listed.
So the analytical AI, focusing on that, is the AI that's existed for a number of years, even before generative AI. It's like, hey, based on the analysis of 30,000 records, based on these keywords, which assignment group do I recommend? Or, there's another type of analytical AI which can be powerful, but you have to be very cautious to deliver in front of the customers is, on this type of ticket, what's the average response time? That sounds great. It's useful internally, but I would be very cautious about putting that in front of the customer because they don't want to hear that on average their ticket takes 3 days to resolve. So that type of analytical AI, traditional AI, looking at the data, you type a key, some search in the search box and it comes out with some relative articles like that's traditional AI.
And give me a time frame on that. The analytical AI has been around for about how long?
Oh, I don't know, a number of years. Probably 4 or 5. I'm not exactly sure.
John, your thoughts on how long it's been around?
I would push it closer to 8. It's ServiceNow has actually had predictive intelligence and natural language assessing or analysis for a long time.
Yeah. Is that, sorry for my ignorance if this sounds like a silly example, but is that like me typing on my phone and it predicting the words I'm going to say next?
On steroids, yes, but it's more like saying when customers have submitted a request for a new network card, 80% of the time it was assigned to this team and resolved by this team. So we're going to suggest that it go to that team.
Okay. Okay.
So it's just a it's just a pretty simple analytical assessment. It says what is the highest percentage or probability that it should go here, right? Or where should it go based on.
So John, the game changer for me was, I guess maybe this conversation, this concept, this type of conversation. And then when somebody started throwing the word generative AI in front of it, and that's when, I don't know, 2 years ago, it started to make sense to me that this was something that was necessary and was going to be valuable. Can you help us understand generative AI in this context?
Yeah, so it still uses a similar approach to looking at what the prompt is. What is it that they're looking for? What information are they giving me? And it's kind of assessing based on the training data where it should go. But where generative AI steps up is it has the ability to not just select from, going back to the previous example, a selected group or list of groups to assign a ticket to. It actually can compile a friendly response using normal language. So if you ask about, hey, I want to go on a vacation to West Texas next week, it can look through all the information that's available about holidays in West Texas, and it can present you with a paragraph, not just a list of bullets or a list of URLs, but it can craft wording to try to inspire you or guide you to where you want to go.
And as John said, based on their time frame, is it this week versus next week? What's happening those weeks? Yep. And what's your destination? How many days you should go? You have where are the key spots you should stop on your trip.
And just to be clear, I'm not an idiot here when it comes to Texas geography. I don't think the analytical AI would recommend West Texas as its first choice.
No, it would not.
Just making sure I wasn't clueless on that one. I'm sure it's a beautiful place.
That was actually going to be something that I would kind of throw in there, where sometimes it'll come back and say, "Are you really sure you want to go there?"
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So help me with the evolution here. So I've got this predictable what's going to happen next concept of analytical AI. And then instead of just kind of giving me guidance and predicting, it's actually going to it's actually going to do something for me is when we start talking about generative AI, almost as if it does it completely for me. Or in the case of, like Microsoft Copilot or something, it just takes my email and rewrites it better. That example of generative AI?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it has the ability to craft regular human language responses. So it can obviously make decisions or suggest directions, but more importantly, it can use specific style of wording. It can do basic different languages. It can even articulate your statement based on certain parameters. You want a higher education like a university level, or you want to give it to me like a 5-year-old. It has the ability to adjust how it crafts those responses.
So, Mike, using the most common so far use of ServiceNow as a ticketing system or ITSM, what would be the best example you would give of generative AI in, let's say, the I don't know, in ticketing? We'll start there.
Well, the most common one, which is probably the most useful, is case summarization. So if you have customer going and an agent going back and forth on discussion, and somebody new comes in, rather than having to read several pages of back and forth, it can summarize the ticket. It'll speed it up. It'll maybe even create a knowledge article based on what the discussion was and what the eventual solution was.
Yeah. John, I'll give you one too, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot like this. Feel free to defer it. Asset management. What would be a great example of where generative AI would be valuable there?
If you wanted to I don't know, let's say you wanted to plan for asset replacement next month or next quarter, right? Say, hey, I need to know all the assets that are coming due or they're coming to end of life need to be replaced in the next quarter. And I want to arrange some conversations with the asset managers for each of those geography areas or however we want to break that up. And it can say, okay, well, you've got 100 assets coming due. 50 of them are managed by this person, 40 by this person. And it can help you just basically tell you, hey, so schedule a meeting with Joe for next week to talk about these 50 assets.
I love this concept because, when I first started learning some of this AI stuff in the Microsoft Copilot world, which is where I get to experience it the most. So I'm sorry, my examples keep going back to that. But, somebody did a prompt or somebody mentioned something that I saw valuable and then I turned around and did it and then they did it and I did it. We just learned from each other. Hey, I didn't, it's like, trial and error. Oh, and it just kept getting it better and better every time we would do it. It became more enlightening what was, potential, the possibility. Mike, I'm going to come back to you on this third one here, agentic AI. I have no idea what that is. Can you put that in
So,
third grade language for me?
so I would say it's going beyond just generative AI. Hey, here's some text or summary. It's, hey, what are you going to do with that? Are we going to orchestrate? Hey, if we see that there is this behavior, we're going to go and orchestrate. We're going to make another call to an external system to make other changes.
Mhm.
So it can act, somewhat autonomously. Now there are some, topics here that are, kind of cross that shady line between generative and agentic AI. But if you were talking about like ITOM, if you're doing alert management and you see that, the server is at 78% disk capacity and usually have a flag at 80%, you might think, well, that's something we need to be concerned with. But if it's been 78% for the last 6 months, but another one is going from 10 to 20 to 40 to 50 to 60, that other one's going to have more input. And with some of that generative AI, you can actually identify some of the up and coming alerts that were going to happen before they do. And to pull that into Gentic, if you have some of that stuff, then you could actually maybe have it automatically create a ticket or spin up more disk drive or bring in more VMs of like.
Okay, that's kind of where I was thinking generative was going. So what you're saying is agentic is the idea that now it's got this data, it can do something, and it's going to do something specific to maybe take the next step and react.
Right. And ServiceNow and the community are still evolving that, and agentic AI means different things to different people. But I would say that's the next step into, hey, generative AI, fantastic. Now what?
Yeah. Hey, John, forget that Mike just answered that. You answer the same question. Agentic AI, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, so I hadn't looked into it much prior to today, so I'm kind of learning as I go here as well. But one of the things that struck me is today we can choose to get Gen AI for development, or we can get it for the virtual agent for HR, or we can get it for ITSM and ticket summarization, like Mike suggested. Where agentic AI comes in is it gets those different agents to talk to one another so that when you have that HR onboarding activity happen, it can spur off other things automatically. It can already talk to the IT uh, uh, agents and trigger the creation of an order for a laptop because we know this person's going to be working remotely, whatever it is. So it's the idea that these agents are all coordinating together to optimize for the organization.
Yeah. And I'm going back to read the first line of this section. Agentic AI is capable of delivering exponential value. I think that's where this all really becomes very interesting. Is this where my robot shows up?
The one that cleans the house.
The one that does whatever it needs to be done without me even having to tell it needs to be done. This is it. And this is where the robot lives?
Sees that spill on the floor, decides to clean it, and decides that, hey, it's been too many spots on the floor. I need to schedule that carpet cleaning instead.
Yeah.
It just tells me I need a mid server in my house so that it can work with all of my robot vacuums.
All right. Next section talks about exponential AI outcomes require coordination. Makes total sense, but let's see what this means. John, we'll go to you first on this one. Take a platform approach.
So this one got into what they're calling AI control tower, and I didn't get a chance to look at it in detail, but it's really just looking at it across the entire platform, all of ServiceNow. ServiceNow's capabilities have been growing since the day it was released, and they're taking this by storm. They're saying we have access to all these different capabilities in your enterprise. Let's make sure AI can help you add value everywhere.
Okay. Mike, you want to take a shot at this one too?
No, I think that what John said is pretty accurate. You're looking at more than just this particular generative use. If we see this behavior, maybe we then trigger this other thing that could have generated that, and they all work together. Hey, what's the health of our system? These things are increasing, those things are decreasing. How is this going to maybe increase the number of help desk agents we need? Things like that.
So as a, I'm going to call myself a newbie to the ServiceNow platform, but I've seen this coming for a while, and watching this act as a platform. This is where being a platform really shows a lot of value beyond disparate applications and things that aren't going to be able to bring it all together.
Absolutely.
And you think ServiceNow knew this day was coming 20 years ago when this all started, or do you think this, or maybe whenever it started, however many years back?
I don't know about 20 years ago, but they were certainly ahead of the curve with generative AI before it really became the buzz. They were thinking about their own LLM and so forth before that.
Well, I think what I'm really asking is, was it really the platform concept that was leading to this, or is this just the benefit of having a platform?
Nope, this was a unique take that ServiceNow had. Fred Luddy, David Liu, the whole group, they started day one saying this is not an ITSM solution. This is a platform for the enterprise. ITSM is just going to be the first application we're going to deliver with it.
Yeah.
So it was really defined around that core functionality, your CMDB, your reporting, all your intakes and outputs, the security model. It was all designed from the beginning to say, this is the starting point. This is going to be able to help you with your entire enterprise.
Yeah. What I love about that conversation is the opportunity that it creates for us is, we're an IT reseller, managed service provider, and IT is where we start with ServiceNow, just like ServiceNow started with itself. That's where we have an opportunity to come in and help. If you can't get the IT part right, chances of getting the rest of this done correctly is almost none, which creates a massive opportunity for us to come in and be a better partner for the clients that are going down the IT route. Mike, I'll start with you on number 2 here. Choose 1 or 2 enterprise-wide metrics to start.
So you can't start everywhere, and you need to identify, hey, what are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to measure? Are we trying to measure customer agent response time? How many tickets they're able to serve in a certain day? Are you looking at revenue? Are you looking at this or that? And you need to speed that up. Are you trying to have more deflection so you don't have tickets to go to the agent? Do you want to speed up the amount of time a person works on the agent? Do you want to speed up ordering of new product into your warehouse so that you have the correct amount? You need to focus on a couple things first.
That's just good advice all the time. But with a platform as extensive as this is, and with as many opportunities there are to solve problems without creating additional problems for yourself, it just makes common sense. John, your take on this, the concept of limiting yourself to a couple key metrics to start?
Well, I think part of it is when you start talking about enterprise-wide capabilities, each of your departments or your divisions or however you want to break up your organization into silos, they're all going to have different measures of success. And so when we talk about an enterprise-wide tool like this, we need to make sure we're focusing on measuring value and success in a way that applies across all of them. If we focus too much on each department's own measurements, they're not going to play nicely together. They're not going to combine together to give us one holistic view of the success of our work.
We won't get the benefit of the platform. If we try to do the whole thing at once, we're going to fail and never get the benefit of walking through the pieces of the platform that apply here. Okay. Number 3, prioritize a unique blend of business acumen and blue sky thinking. John, you want to tackle that one?
Well, obviously, you kind of touched on this earlier with the value of IT. Most organizations have traditionally looked at IT as a cost center. We are only here to spend the money that everybody else makes in the company. It's always been a challenge for IT to make the case and help business understand that we're here to make sure we can protect and manage the information you require to do your business. This kind of adds to that, or at least it supports that approach when you talk about your IT people being able to understand what the business is doing. The idea that IT is just the people sitting in the basement with propeller hats on, that doesn't play well. We need to be a part of the business organization. We need to be business partners. We need to be in those conversations to help understand where the business is trying to go so that we can help them make sure the data tells them what they need to tell them. It really is about being a business partner, not just an expense center.
Yeah. Mike, your comments?
I mean, everything John said, but I would say that if you want to think forward about, hey, how can I improve the business? You can ask generative AI, hey, what can I do to improve the business? It can give you good ideas. The step to say, I want to improve it is important. The leveraging the tools to identify them is important. But yes, you need to, not take as carte blanche the answers as that's what I'm going to do, but take it, ask it, evaluate it, see what's possible.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of stuff out there saying, hey, is AI going to take away our jobs? Well, maybe not, but you need to know how to use AI or you probably will lose that job.
Yeah. Is this where my thought on, AI in all aspects should not do the job for you, but it should be a great coach to help you do the job better?
Mostly, yeah.
Yep.
Mostly, yeah.
But then there will be menial things and maybe things that go way beyond menial. I assume way beyond menial at some point, that it can just do for you. It can predict it. It can see it coming. It can take care of it when it happens. If something goes awry, it can make the adjustments needed on the fly.
Right. I mean, in most cases, you want to have AI in whatever form focus on the key issues or the most common ones. But as we grow, it'll be able to handle those exceptions a lot better. Be able to say, hey, I haven't seen this exactly this, but maybe I can do my own query of generative AI to find out what an answer was, and then direct it or initiate it from there.
All right. So there's another picture here. It says a quote: "To realize the full power of AI, think of it as a spectrum from incremental outcomes through exponential results. Although there's a spectrum, along this spectrum are three levels of AI."
She's off in the house.
John, I muted you real quick. All right. Making autonomous AI real. Sections I encounter potential transformation using multi-agent autonomous AI every day. Speaking with clients. How can my customers resolve their issues more quickly? How can my sales team serve their customers better? How can my employees be more productive? It starts with how can my customers resolve their issues quickly? Mike, you want to jump on that one?
Well, it kind of comes back to that some of the KPI question we had before. It's like, hey, what do you want to accomplish? And one of the ones I said is, hey, I want to be able to have our customers serve themselves in order to have deflection. And if we want to help our customers resolve their issues more quickly, deflection is a great way to do that, to be able to say, hey, these are the common situations. Here's a knowledge article. Here's a KB. Here's maybe something else that I searched for that might be able to find your answer. XenTegra is not just a ServiceNow shop, we're an MSP. If we can, provide them answers in order to answer those questions, that would be helpful. Though, of course, we don't want to get rid of our businesses either. Yeah. So these are just more examples of what your use case is. What's that KPI you want to measure?
And John, I'm going to ask you to unmute so we can get your answer to this one. But this next one, how can my sales team serve their customers better, be more productive, sell more? I haven't really thought about AI as a sales enablement, but it's really popped up on my radar several times.
Yeah. So there was a meme that went around a little bit ago. I was talking about how AI has become so good at doing graphics and how creative it is, and the capture at the line at the bottom was saying, well, I don't want AI to do all of the creative stuff so that I'm free to do my laundry and clean my house. I want AI to clean my house so I'm free to do all my enjoyable creative stuff.
Right.
And what this is talking about is, let's make sure the AI can handle all of the nuanced stuff behind the scenes. How can we help the customers, deflect the tickets and that, so that I can focus my time on managing my relationships with my customers and with my employees? How can I have that relationship be more about the positives and not worry too much about the negatives, because those are already taken care of?
Mike, this last one, how can I help my employee? This is really the one that's probably most applicable to everybody who listens and everybody who's thinking through this. How can I help my employees be more productive and satisfied with their jobs? Which I think goes back to what John was just talking about a minute ago. They want to do the fun part of the job, but not the worst part of the day-to-day and or their job. What's
I'll put a slight spin on this. So when my very first job, I wound up leaving because they outsourced me to another company, but in seat, and the tools they had were a pain to work with. And I was like, I'm not enjoying myself because I'm having to struggle with these tools. And if we can make our employees more effective to say, hey, I'm actually able to accomplish this rather than doing routine, menial things that doesn't seem to have much utility or helping me grow, then I'm going to be a happier person. And if we can give these people the ticket summarization so they can quickly look at it and understand it, they can act quickly and focus on the real stuff rather than having to spend 20 minutes delving through back and forth between two people, that will make them happier and therefore more productive and more likely to stick around.
Yeah. So Mike, that seems to address the incremental. What's the exponential future of that?
Well, I'd say that rather than having the employee know that they have to do work on this, just as that first sentence says, provide the employee with a series of tasks to initiate. Hey, I've identified these issues. Why don't you then take a look at them in order to improve them? Right. How can we not just improve my day-to-day moment, but how can I improve what I need to work on so I can be more effective?
Yeah. So kind of eliminate the mundane, help with the mundane, and maybe even get to the point where the mundane is solved, and now we all move forward with, more advanced things to work on. Mm-hmm. John, any thoughts on this, the employee productivity overall thing?
The one piece that keeps coming back to me is, this is what Mike talked about. If I am jumping in to help somebody out on a ticket that's already been out for a while, I don't want to have to read through everything. Just give me the summary of what it is, and help me understand where I need to be for right now.
Right. Yeah. All right. The next section talks about how to get started. This is the last section. Don't get derailed by measurement. Focus on value. John, you want to cover that?
This seems to go against everything that they talk about in business for decades, right? It's don't worry so much about your return on investment. Don't worry about measuring every penny of cost and value. It really is talking about taking a step back and just seeing from a softer value, if you will, that is this really adding value to our organization? Is this really helping our customers to be happier with our service, our employees to be happier with their jobs? It seems to just kind of flip that old ROI conversation on its head.
Yeah. Mike, your thoughts on value being the thing to focus on?
Metrics are important. Know what your number of tickets you're solving and so forth, but you need to see ultimately, does this keep people around? Yes, there is now generative AI where it can write some of the code. If it speeds up that code, yeah, that sounds good, but is it worth the time, which kind of goes against the ROI? So again, it seems a little odd to be saying that to ignore ROI completely, but to at least consider where it can help prior to talking about just ROI. Think about what it can do, rather than starting with ROI to only be narrow focused on some specifics. Yeah. See what it could do, how it could help, rather than just be so narrowly focused on one item.
Okay.
One of the old adages of metrics and KPIs is whatever you define as your KPI, that's the only thing that's going to matter, right? If we only care about how quickly can we get these tickets closed, that's all your agents are going to focus on, is how quickly can I get these cases closed. That's not going to play into how happy our customers are with our service.
Right. Next session talks about know your AI. I think for me, this is something I talk about a lot. I mean, not being the expert in this area, but knowing there's a lot of AI coming from all the directions. John, what are you seeing out there as far as people being bombarded by AI conversations that they're not prepared for?
Actually, at this point, I'm still mostly seeing people talking about ChatGPT, and I see a lot of comments where people are kind of mocking this idea of a prompt engineer, because it is still very difficult, or like you said earlier, it takes multiple attempts to get a reasonable response. And for some people jumping in and asking it to summarize something or write a paper for them or whatever it is that they're asking for, if they don't take the time to review the results and they don't recognize the mistakes, they're going to go with the first candidate, the first result they get. And it can be important to recognize, no, that's not right. I need to go back and refine this.
Yeah, you've probably seen me bring it back to Copilot multiple times. That's what I experience every day. I haven't experienced it that I know of outside of that, but I probably am. I just don't know it. Mike, your thoughts on the AI again, know your AI. What does that mean to the average person?
I think it kind of comes back to the value. You know, a lot of people use AI, say AI generate this, AI generate that. Is it really true? Are they just throwing the buzzword around? Are they trying to make a business out of something that really is somebody trying to get a buck? Ultimately, you need to have the practical experience with it to say, hey, is it useful? And to John's point of view, not just accept the first answer. If you're going to try to, make an announcement to your customers, hey, let's use generative AI to draft out a message, then take a look at it and say, yeah, this is fantastic, or this is almost fantastic. Let me just tweak that stuff. Once you start using that, it's a great tool for you. I have a friend who's an accountant. They have obviously some restrictions about sending their customers' data out there, but they have the ability to say, hey, go find me, articles or policies or statutes on these three things, and saves them a lot of time. Know what is out there, know how it can help you, build from there.
So this last one here, number 3, says, stop thinking, what's my AI strategy? That's interesting for me because that's the number one way I start every conversation when I'm trying to get you guys or Brett on our AI team involved, challenging people whether they even have a strategy or not. I think it's a very pointed way to get conversation started. But according to this, John, why is it saying don't focus on what's my AI strategy? Why did they say that?
I think part of it is to avoid falling into analysis paralysis. Don't spend so much time trying to figure out what it can and should do for you that you never get started. Just go get into it, see what it does for your business, and adjust from there. Get into it now and adjust. And more specifically, it's about looking for how you can adjust your organization to get more value from the AI.
Mike, your thoughts on the stop thinking about just what's the strategy comment?
I think that's a great point. I mean, I agree with John a lot, but like if I was some C-level saying, hey, what's my AI strategy? I don't know what that would mean. It's like, hey, yes, we want to transform the business around something, or do we want to say, hey, how can we improve the business leveraging what's out there? It might be too big a thing to chew on. Let's take it. Let's take advantage of it before we necessarily define the whole business around it. I mean, define the whole business around it can be good, but let's not start and stop there.
Yeah. So, guys, thanks for covering that with me. I'm go back to the title here. How does this concept that we've covered here today result back into the title of exponential outcomes? Can you kind of translate what we've covered back into the title of exponential outcomes?
I think just as we said that this is a transformative technology. I mean, I don't know that it's more transformative than the internet at all, but perhaps so. That you need to, just as with the internet came out, people were doing things very brick and mortar, and there was a lot of potential to do things online and put your business online. These are the times to talk about, hey, how are we going to take advantage of our business? At Knowledge 24 last year, they had one of their presentations was kind of interesting. They had like a donut shop where they were using AI to identify how many customers are coming in at different times based on school releases, and whether it's a full moon or the like, and then order the right amount and let the people focus on making those donuts. It's pretty fantastic. You need to identify and say, hey, how could this help our business? How could we transform? How can we go from some of the predictive stuff to using ChatGPT to going into some of that agent specific capabilities? It's fantastic. It's going to exponentially improve the business world. It's just a matter of being on top of it so you don't fall behind.
Yeah. So John, same question to you. What's the exponential piece of following the outline we've gone through in this blog?
I think it has a lot to do with not limiting your expectations on what it could deliver, right? Don't think of it as just summarizing incidents or just doing one or two things that have been a part of the marketing to date. It's reached the point now where we're ready to start having those different pieces talk to one another and to allow the synergies of the different capabilities of the platform to just add more and more value to your organization.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that if you approach this wrong or you approach it closed-minded-ish, that you're going to have limited outcomes versus, going basically understanding what's in this blog and really thinking beyond what's positioned for you and thinking more wide open about what can be?
I think so. I think it's even more than that, where it's don't even worry about what you think it can do. Get into it, start using it, and let it show you what it can do.
Mm.
And is it fair to think of whatever your challenges or concerns are, that be open-minded to what AI with help from someone like us potentially on a platform like ServiceNow could solve, and assuming that there's nothing it couldn't solve with the right approach?
It's still learning from our own mistakes, our own past, right? So there's still going to be a certain amount where we have to be involved in that. We have to provide that oversight.
Yeah.
Mike said earlier that we need to make sure that we're using it for our internal work. I don't believe that it is rated or that it's appropriate to make it customer facing at this point. But it's definitely something that, it's here.
Yeah.
If we can't get on board with what it's capable of doing, our competition will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's only one thing certain about the evolution, is it will evolve.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, guys. Mike, John, thanks for joining today. I appreciate you having this conversation with me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Talk to you later.